Well, by now, you have probably heard about the fact that Tom Cruise, well, he kind of lost it with his crew on the latest installment of the Mission Impossible series. In fact, he threatened to fire them for ignoring social distancing and not practicing the proper COVID-19 safety protocols. Everybody is weighing in on this, and I've decided I'm going to weigh in on it too, and I think I've got a perspective maybe just a little bit different than what you're hearing in other places. I know, you're surprised by that. Hollywood is rushing to the defense of Tom Cruise, who lost it with some crew members who were apparently not standing 6 feet apart, maybe sometimes talking with their masks down to one another, and there's no way to say it. He was not in cruise control, he was out of control, and he just absolutely lost it.
I'm on the phone with every studio at night, insurance companies, producers, and they're looking at us and using us to make their movies. We are creating thousands of jobs. I don't ever want to see it again. Ever. And if you don't do it, you're fired. And I see you do it again, you're gone. And anyone on this crew does it. That's it. And you too. And you too. And you. Don't you ever do it again. That's it. No apologies. You can tell it to the people that are losing their homes because our industry is shut down. It's not going to put food on their table or pay for their college education. That's what I sleep with every night. In the future of this industry. So I'm sorry, I'm beyond your apologies. I have told you, and now I want it. And if you don't do it, you're out. We are not shutting this movie down! Is it understood? If I see it again, you're gone. And so are you. So you're going to cost him his job. And I see it on the set, you're gone. And you're gone. That's it. Am I clear? Do you understand what I want? Do you understand the responsibility that you have? Heroin. Warner Brothers. Movies are going because of us. If we shut down, it's going to cost people jobs. Their homes, their families. That's what's happening. All the way down the line. I care about you guys. If you're not going to help me, you're gone.
Now, actors like George Clooney came to his defense and said, I might have said things a little bit differently and handled a little bit differently than the way Tom did, but I agree with his sentiment and why he did it. And then you had completely void and absent of intelligence people like Whoopi Goldberg over on The View say this.
You know, some people don't understand that why he would get so angry. You know, I get it. You know, that's his movie. And if he goes down with COVID, the movie's done. It's 5-6 weeks done. You can keep going. You can get a new camera operator. No disrespect to camera operators. You can get a new sound man, but you can't get another Tom Cruise. It's him. And if he's looking over and he can see you not doing what you're supposed to be doing, it's kind of like a little bit of a middle finger.
Whoops. Missed the whole point there, Whoopi. He was not talking about being worried that he himself would contract the virus. He was worried that the officials would come in and shut them down. He's got quite a personal financial stake in this movie, and he can't afford to have it shut down again. So you kind of missed it, Whoopi, and but that doesn't surprise me. You and the rest of the hags over at The View usually do miss it. So let me clue you in where I'm at in all of this. I have, at times, and this may shock you, gotten upset or two with a subordinate. And sometimes there are subordinates that you have dealt with when they have made mistakes and you have been patient and you have been long suffering with, and then you get to a point where finally you just realize you got to say this in crystal clear terms that they will not forget. I have done that once or twice in my life. Never more than that, but I have done it. So I get Cruz's frustration. I really do. And by the way, I've not simply just worked in ministry my whole life. I have worked in the secular field in other areas, and whether I was in management, whether I was pastoring, or just places where I had individuals under me, when you feel like that you have worked with a group of people and they're just not paying attention to the direction that they are receiving, there comes a point where you can be exasperated. And you know what? I'm going to shock some of you. I'm not a huge Tom Cruise fan. I like the Mission Impossible series. I think he's done a great job as Ethan Hunt. There have been a couple installments in the series that I thought were kind of lame, to be quite honest with you. My favorite will always be MI1, the kickoff that he did with John Voight. I think that set a standard for the whole spy thriller genre. I still think that is a colossal scene where he is suspended from the ceiling while he hacks into a computer terminal. Will I see the latest installment? I don't know. I finally got around to seeing the other last installment, and the whole helicopter scene is pretty intense. And Tom Cruise is one of those, he really throws himself into the role. Apparently he got hurt, broke his ankle, I think, on the last installment, and he actually went to flight school to learn how to fly a helicopter so that his facial reactions in the whole helicopter sequence would be real. That all said, you know how I feel about this whole coronavirus hysteria and what we're going through. And I am not defending whatever Tom Cruise's political ideologies might be, and I certainly don't agree with his theological ideology. He's part of the Church of Scientology. But I will say this. I get why he did. He is part of an industry that it's amazing. They're basically based in a state which has declared war on business, California. And I have to wonder what is going through the minds of these Hollywood movie executives who are trying to operate a business in a state that just doesn't want businesses to operate. I mean, what Gavin Newsom and Mayor Garcetti are doing is just off the rails. Now, we know that Hollywood is given special permission to do things that other people are not allowed to do. They're allowed to operate in ways that other businesses are not allowed to operate. But at the end of the day, Hollywood is basically killing its own industry. Movie theaters across the country are shuttered, and those that are open are not even running at 25% capacity. And not because I happen to live in a place where movie theaters are wide open. There's limitations on seating, but that's not even a problem because the constant haranguing of the media and the warnings from the governor and the warnings from Dr. Fauci, the people are scared to death. They think they are literally going to drop dead if they walk in, sit down in a movie theater. That they're just pulling the mask down to eat popcorn. Oh, I'm going to die. And unfortunately, Hollywood, there is a doctrine in the Bible called sowing and reaping. And those that sow to the wind reap the whirlwind. Well, you have sown into all of these liberal causes and these liberal ideologies, and you have been part of the hysteria, and all of you Hollywood elitist actors doing your videos from your multi-million-dollar mansions during the first wave of lockdowns telling us We're all in this together. No, we're not. We don't live in multi-million-dollar mansions. We do not have manservants named Manuel that we pay under the table because they're here illegally to send out to the store and face imminent death on our behalf. So don't even remotely try to act like that you, on any level, understand the pain and the suffering of the average person right now, and particularly in the state of California. People who are not allowed to work, people who have lost their businesses, losing their homes, they've lost their livelihood, their life savings, they've lost everything. As you sit there in your multi-million-dollar home and you've got a backyard for your kids that resembles a small version of Disneyland, don't act like we're, quote, all in this together. But you've killed your own industry. And what Tom Cruise is trying to do is get his industry back to work. And I hear the frustration in his voice of saying, look, I'm trying to give you a job. I'm trying to give the people in your line of work a job so that you can pay your rent, make your car payment, put your kids through college. You not get what we're doing here? And there's a frustration here that I think some on the conservative side have misinterpreted. He's fully embracing the COVID restrictions, etc. I don't know what his personal views on all of that are. I'm sure some of you in the comments section will let me know. But what I do hear, and this is where I'm going to take this a little bit different than some other commentators probably are, there is a fear and a frustration there. There is a fear that his industry is never going to recover from this. And I think he has a genuine concern for, hey, look, a guy like a Tom Cruise, no matter what you think of all these people, these multi-mega stars, Tom Hanks, etc., 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 these guys financially, they're fine. They're going to be fine. And but the guys that actually make the movies happen, the camera operators, the boom operators, the light people, the technicians, the set designers, etc., 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 etc. We're talking about literally thousands of lives and livelihoods and paychecks gone. Gone. So I get his frustration there. I get that he is trying to, quote, set the gold standard because he's talking, he says, to other Hollywood studios. He wants them to know it can be done. We can film action movies and make everything on screen look as normal as possible. Because you noticed when the lockdowns first hit, we were being treated to TV commercials from places like Domino's Pizza and cellular, like not Verizon, but different cellular companies, that in the commercial they're masked. The Domino's Pizza guy masked. And you're not seeing any of that now. You know why? Because focus groups told them people don't want to see the mask. They don't want to be reminded of the pain that they're actually living in right now. So when you watch TV commercials and even new installments of shows and movies, some of which have been produced post-COVID lockdown, they're trying to make things on screen appear as normal as possible again, because that's what the public wants to see. And so he is trying to let the Hollywood studios know, we can do this. We can do this. We can make this happen. And I'm sure he's also thinking about all the money and time he's got invested. Hey, I'm going to actually have some movie theaters to show this in, right? Please tell me this isn't going straight to Netflix or Amazon streaming, that something this big, this colossal, this much splash, we're going to get this on the big screen, and there'll be people sitting in there to watch it, right? I mean, he's stressing. He's stressing. And here's the thing, and this is where I'm going to take it different. Fauci, this is your fault. Yeah, you knew I'd get around to Fauci. Fauci, this is your fault. This is another byproduct of Fauciism. Fauci, who is portrayed by the media and certain libloons as this almost benevolent grandfather who's just trying to save lives. No, he's not. He is a political hack who has had a knack for surviving in the swamp system of bureaucratic politics for 40 plus years. He was in charge of the entire handling of the AIDS epidemic. And what happened? Well, we've lost, about 35 million people to AIDS since the mid-1980s. And as far as I know, there's no vaccine for AIDS, is there? No. You don't even have to Google that. And by the way, it's an amazing thing when Fauci back in the 80s was talking about how to stop the mitigation, the spread of AIDS, and NBA basketball players were going to have to wear face masks. People have forgotten some of this stuff that he came up with. And to go see somebody with AIDS in the hospital, as a pastor at the time, I had to put on goggles, a face mask, gloves, a hazmat suit. I was in one ICU unit where I took all that off so I could literally put my hands on the person, pray for them. It was a woman who was literally dying. And when I got done praying for her, yes, I leaned forward, I kissed her on the forehead. When I exited the IC area, immediately a team of doctors and nurses came running, like I was going to have to be deloused because I took the garments off in there. And they told me I was going to have to stay. I said, you better call the police because I'm leaving. And I walked out the side exit. This is what Dr. Fauci, the pain he inflicted on people. But the one thing he would not do during the entire AIDS epidemic was tell people not to engage in the sexual activity that was known to be the greatest launch pad for the disease. They were simply told, wear a condom. And AIDS continued to spread. But we were given all these other fake safety protocols, and, people were scared to death to receive a blood transfusion. There were people involved in drugs, shooting up things like heroin, who were using dirty needles and getting it. And what was the libloons solution to that? Help these people get off drugs? No. Cities need to have needle exchanges. Here, turn in your dirty needle and we'll give you a clean one so that you can continue to perpetuate this behavior that's going to kill you. That was perfectly okay. But you and I today are now told we basically cannot live our lives normally over something that 99.8% of the people will not die from. And we have to be vaccinated. You got Andrew Yang, former Democratic presidential candidate out there, now saying that he wants a barcode on your cell phone so that you can be scanned to know if you've had the vaccine or not, so that you can have entry into things like concerts and ball games, etc., etc., etc. Oh yeah, and while we're at it, why not I just wear the Jewish star on my arm like we did in Nazi Germany? This is the madness of these people. And Fauci, who just the other day basically was telling people, don't do Christmas. And he was, talking about in an interview where, Christmas Eve is special to him because it's also his birthday, and he's not going to have any of his married children over to the house. He and his wife will be alone, and they will be alone on Christmas Day. And then he got called out for it. He got a huge backlash, to which he then said, oh, that's not what I said.
Listen, I saw the Washington Post comments. I couldn't believe what I saw, but I just want to make sure I got this right. You're saying cancel the family gathering for Christmas. Is that right?
No, Bill, I'm not saying that everyone should cancel the family gathering. I'm saying that people will need to make individual choices. And when you're talking about having a congregate setting for a dinner, not cancel the family aspect, but, you have some Christmas dinners. People bring friends and others in who've traveled from different parts of the country. You could have 15, 20 people at a dinner. That's really somewhat risky. Try to make some limitation to it. I think there's been a misinterpretation somehow by some.
It sounds like the same advice you were given at Thanksgiving. 10 people in a house, no more than 2 families at a time to come together. So you have not deviated from that, to be more clear now.
I think there has been misinterpretation. I've heard and seen tweets saying Fauci says cancel Christmas. Nonsense. I've never said that.
So he thinks he's modifying it by saying, like Thanksgiving, I was just recommending that you limit how many people come. Well, first of all, who are you to do that? What if somebody has 6 adult children who are married? Which one of your adult children and grandchildren do you say can't come over this year? And this is beyond unconscionable. And this is where I'm going with this whole Fauci aspect. What he has done, the psychological, emotional whammy jam, I guess that'd be the way to word this, that he has placed on the vast majority of the psyche of people. I have a very hard time not losing it over this, and I'm serious. The cure that he comes up with is far worse than the disease itself. There are people who are scared to death to gather with friends and family. See, I operate my ministry as about as normal as you can under these circumstances, and I get a guy like Cruz is worried that at any moment some health official is going to walk onto a set and he's going to get nailed. Now, I will say this. I'm sure he has given these people warnings before about stay apart, wear your mask, etc., etc. And in his mind, there's also this part of, hey, I'm providing you a job, and this is how you thank me by ignoring what I'm trying to do to keep you employed. And so he lost it. But it is got to be hard, and I have to be honest. If I were standing there working on that set, okay, I'm watching you, Tom, run around with your mask off and interact normally, but now I can't. And that's, again, it's this hypocritical, double standard. It's like walking into a restaurant where you're told you have to walk in a mask because the virus will kill you as you stand there at the host station. But once you get to your table, you can take your mask off, and then all of a sudden, apparently because you're sitting in a booth that has plexiglass or a shower curtain hanging there, the virus just magically dies. See, none of this makes a lick bit of sense to people. If you get up from your table, you got to put a mask on to go to the bathroom. But then you can go back to your table, and it's business as normal. The wait staff wears a mask to interact with you while you have your mask off. See, this is what's driving people nuts. And nobody really logics this thing through. Every place that has been under severe lockdown, I'm talking about California, New York, etc., 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 they've been in masks since day one, and their numbers keep spiking. At some point, do we say, maybe the mask isn't working? And we know how there's been so much misreporting, over-exaggeration. So they're now estimating that 95% of the new cases, quote unquote, are they're negative positives. In other words, that you're testing positive, but you don't actually have it. You're asymptomatic because you don't really have it. It's unbelievable. But yet we're reporting it as the numbers are going up and hospitals are filling up. No, the only reason hospitals are filling up, they lost so much money during the shutdown that if you've got basically anything wrong with you, they're admitting you and they're labeling it COVID. Look that up, because that is happening. And again, you know they're manipulating, sadly, the death numbers. And that's unconscionable to the families and the grieving loved ones left behind. And I think some of it's just outright made up. There is an agenda being driven here. And Fauci is this little rock star where people just hang on his every word. And he is almost having a premature ejaculation, waiting for Joe Biden in his mind to be sworn in so that he can really take the reins of control on this thing. I have to be very careful about this. But as a man of faith, as a man of theology, as one who does truly believe that there is a heaven and there is a God above us, and if you have a relationship with Christ, that is your eternal destination. I also believe that there is a real devil and a real hell, and there are people who will spend eternity there. And I have long been a proponent and have espoused the theology that just like there are varying degrees of blessing in heaven, there are varying degrees of punishment and torment in a place like hell. In other words, hell for just someone who was simply a non-believer will be a little bit different than it will for, say, an Adolf Hitler. And now I have to wonder if there isn't a special place reserved for people like Dr. Fauci and what they do to people in the way of literally an emotional, mental torture they have placed on people. You have businesses that are going along with just some of the most draconian, arduous restrictions for fear that they'll lose their license, lose their livelihood, and that's what I heard in Tom Cruise's voice. And this goes back to people like Dr. Fauci. What they have done is they have transformed this country. We wear a mask of fear. We're afraid to get in touch and be with people. And all of this is psychologically, it is emotionally detrimental, devastating, dangerous, and deadly. And I blame Dr. Fauci, and I blame the minions that continue to spew this hogwash and this nonsense. Live your life. Celebrate Christmas. I remind you that Scripture says it is not good for man to be alone. Isolation, solitary confinement, it's not good. Now, some people choose to do it, but it's not good. And to take advantage of a viral outbreak that has a 99% recovery rate and to use it to exert control and restriction and limitation on people and literally to destroy their futures and their livelihoods is unconscionable. And it is time to push back and say that's enough. Well, that's it for this rant. Make sure you give us a thumbs up and a like. And by the way, YouTube's messing with my memberships again. Yes, I've lost 50 subscribers in 2 days. 50. You'll notice if you look at my subscription totals, I went from 4,200 and something to now you're down to 4,100 and 900. They're messing. Check your subscription status to my channel. Hey, and make sure you smack the bell, click the word all to get notification of my next rant, maybe. But, you know, YouTube shadow bans me.